everyone, and welcome. My name is Paige, and I'm at Deschutes Public Library, and I'm joined here tonight by Paul Arney from the Apothecary in Bend,
Hi.
Oregon. What you are about to see is a documentary that Paul has created, tracking this fantastic journey that he took, a philosophical journey as well as a physical journey through some traditional brewing techniques. And Paul is going to share just a little bit of inspiration about the film and what he's currently working on. So Paul, thanks so much for being here. We're so very excited. Before we begin, do you mind just giving us like a 30-second recap of what we can expect from your film?
Yeah, sure. So the film chronicles a trip to the traditional Norwegian Brewers Fest held in Hornindal, Norway. It's out in the country and is something that I didn't know anything about. I took a trip to Norway a few years ago, and a friend of mine that I'd met over there who is a brewer, after chatting, we got to know each other, and he understood the things that inspire me with my brewery, and told me that if I had ever like to come back, he has the perfect brew festival to show me, the things that I really want to see. That was his perspective. And so trusting him, I said, sure. He told me a little bit about the fest, which is it's designed to help protect this brewing heritage that exists in Scandinavia that's really unique in the world. There is continual brewing practices in place now that stretch back hundreds of years. And most importantly is their domesticity of particular types of brewing yeast. And these days we're running into a situation where that yeast and the way that they do things might be threatened. So my thought was going over there, seeing this, I could bring back some information to share with people in a way to excite the brewing industry and maybe beyond, to just awareness and hopefully help protect it in some way.
Yeah, and your video does just that. It's this amazing amalgamation of science and information, and then also getting to know the people and the processes in a really, really intricate way that still feels really familiar. So something that I was fascinated about was that you have a combination of cartoon and illustration as well as actual footage. How did you decide on that specific format for this documentary?
Well, I will say the very primary reason for taking the trip to Norway and making a film, I was going to go either way, but my brother's a videographer, and my other brother is involved in arts and music, and I thought it might be a really good way for us to do something together. Now that we're older and can't spend as much time together as we used to, I do try to find ways to dovetail work and pleasure, and this was a good way for my brewery to fund a trip that would allow us to make something creative together. And so when we got into the editing phase, there were some specific, there's specific challenges to getting information across with the existing footage that we had, and trying to bring things to a point quickly. And we had a friend who is a very good artist, and we thought that some of the animation might be a good way to not only help move the story along, but it was also visually, because it's I did want to make something that was more than just informative. I wanted something that was also fun to look at.
Yeah, you did an amazing job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so speaking of your brewery, what you do, can you tell us a little bit about the Ale Apothecary and what you're currently working on?
Oh, for sure. So I started the Ale Apothecary in 2011. The name comes from the fact that I have this funny family lineage where my dad and grandpa and great grandpa were all drugstore operators, all had a little drugstore. The word apothecary, its root actually referred to a shopkeeper, but it was kind of appropriated to this class of brewing chemists that preceded, the modern medical designations of things. So I kind of felt like it was a good way to honor my family lineage, and then also for myself a way to keep things rational. Like I really was intentional about building this brewery in a way that it wouldn't turn into an industry. It was so I am the shopkeeper at my little brewery. I'm the guy behind the counter, so to speak. And the intention was to use the techniques and the limitations of historical breweries to create something unique and from this place. And so using local ingredients, right? I limit myself to using ingredients from Oregon. I try to brew a completely natural product without contemporary industrial processing aids, which are something the industrial brewing uses frequently. Just food processing in general uses a lot of stuff that you don't see on the package. And this isn't a knock on industrial fruit or industrial beer. I consume both of those. I think you know what I mean. This is in a lot of ways it's kind of an art installation. This is it's kind of a dreamy look at the craft, like, you know, because the things that inspire me about the brewing tradition is the history and it's the craft. And so building this with not a lot of money, you know, I'm leaning on historical precedent, I suppose, right? So with limited raw materials and limited funds, I have to dig into the creative brewer's brain to make a unique beer. So we're using the water that comes out of the ground, the yeast comes out of the air, and you know, directly sourced products are foods from Central Oregon.
Yes, in the film, you use ponderosa pine bark from Oregon that you brought to Norway. So that's just one example of some of those fun, amazing local ingredients. And in this case, local from Oregon. And
Yep.
do you have any other interesting ones that have been kind of your favorites that you've worked with in the past?
Yeah, a couple. We have a couple beers that we make frequently that make use of trees from the breweries up by Tumalo Falls, up Skyliners. And so we have a beer that's made with white fir, a beer that's made with spruce. Annually, we make a beer where we harvest the manzanita flowers. And similarly, we have another beer where we harvest blackcurrant by the creek. But yeah, and sometimes the ones that really get me excited is we've got a beer that's coming out soon, where we're using a fermentation vessel that was made by a winemaker in Sherwood, Oregon. He made these giant clay pots, and you know, the process, in my opinion anyway, is equal to the raw materials in terms of impact on the final product. So sometimes just even using something like a giant clay pot made by was that a cat?
There is a cat in my lap.
That was awesome. It looked kind of like a shadow.
Pardon me.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, so like to be able to find out and meet and collaborate with other Oregon people with the same kind of mindset, you know, so you know, because we do everything with oak barrels is because using this wild yeast mixed culture, it can live in the pores of the wood. And same applies for this clay pot. It pours a little bit and creates a different mouthfeel. So that was really fun.
So you, for instance, you were talking about all these different trees that you're using from Oregon, like the white spruce, the ponderosa. Then in the film, you went out and harvested some native juniper to put into this beer, the collaborative beer that you use the ponderosa with. And you said that it was very different from Central Oregon juniper. Have you tried to use Central Oregon juniper in your own brewing?
I have had experience with it. I worked at Deschutes Brewery before I started my brewery, and we did a couple projects with juniper, the Central Oregon variety, and it's different. And in my taste, it's unpleasant a little bit. It's it's got this cat pee thing going on. And when we were in Norway, and for their traditional brews, they often use juniper. Well, historically, they use a juniper infusion in water as their sanitizing agent. They'll boil juniper, steep it in water, and then use that water to clean out their brewing equipment, and then also use fresh juniper in the process. And then seeing it there, it's slightly different. They have little needles, much more like what we were used to as far as fir trees, as opposed to the way that Central Oregon juniper looks a little bit more like cedar. It's kind of got those lobes on it. And smelling the stuff in Scandinavia was very citrusy, and very pleasant. And oddly enough, this summer I was on a backpacking trip with my brother, and we came across some alpine juniper up in the Cascades that resembled the Scandinavian juniper. It was low brush, and it had needles, and it smelled very citrusy. So I guess I'm just, if I want to use juniper from Oregon, I'm going to have to go up to the mountains to get it.
Yeah, sounds like you'll have to take a little adventure. If you do, let us know. I'd be very curious to try that.
Yeah, for sure.
We're just really grateful to get to show and share this film with everyone. So check us out online at DeschutesLibrary.org and find the Ale Apothecary here in Bend, Oregon. And Paul, are you currently open right now? Do you have a website or anything where people can find out more information on you?
Yes, thank you. So our website is www.thealeapothecary.com. It does have information about the beers that we're producing. We have an ale club where there's information on there as well. And right now, my wife and I are running our tasting room Thursday, Friday, Saturday from 3 to 7. We have outside seating and very limited inside seating. And we're just going to have to see how the cold weather treats us. But we're doing our best to keep everybody separate, but we are open for some limited hours.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. We hope that you have grabbed a beer from the Ale Apothecary before you started this film. And if not, check them out. Paul, thank you again. I hope to see you soon. And take care, everyone.
Thank you, Paige. Enjoy, everybody.